Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session on transforming customer journeys for better customer experience and results. My name is Andy Gremett. I'm a product marketing director at Treasure Data, and joining me is Joana de Quintanilha. She's a vice president and principal analyst at Forrester, and her expertise includes digital customer experience, tools like journey mapping and agile methods, and she leads customer experience index research in Europe. So thank you for joining me today, Joana.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
All right, I think we're ready.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited to be here and to talk to you today about how to transform customer journeys for better customer experience and results. It's an incredibly popular topic at the moment. It's one of the key areas that I focus on, customer journeys and all different aspects of customer journeys, but also really how we can use a much more data-driven approach to customer journeys in order to drive better customer experience and results. So over the years and after working with many different types of clients on helping them to map customer journeys, understand customer journeys, one of the things that we have really seen and that is supported also by other research is that journey centricity, so the ability to focus on customer journeys and reorient your organization around customer journeys, is the great unlock for companies that are struggling perhaps to make progress with their customer experience scores and their programs. And when it comes to journey centricity, you really, as an organization, need to make the decision to embrace journey centricity in its full sense, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. But why should you do this? Why is journey centricity important? And I want to talk you through three reasons why I think journey centricity is incredibly important and really is this great unlock. The first reason is that customer journeys help you to focus on what your customers really want. And that might sound obvious, but sometimes we struggle to really, as an organization, focus on what customers really want. Customer journeys provide us with information, with key insights about the customer's intent at the macro level as well as the micro level. What are they trying to do? What are they trying to get done? But also the context. What are the touch points, the channels, the location that they are in as they are trying to accomplish these goals? And also the emotion behind those interactions, the level of engagement, the sentiment, and intent, context, and emotion together really help us to understand and focus on what customers really want and to use that to deliver both customer as well as business results.
So, Joanna, there's a lot of talk with people in certain industries about kind of brand loyalty, kind of being a little bit less than what it was. And with your first point there, what are your thoughts around uh, customer experience and customer engagement, and how does that, how do you think Journey can affect that, if at all, for industries where this brand loyalty may be not as strong as it was?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, of course, we're talking predominantly about customer journeys here, but we also use journey centricity to understand partner journeys, supplier journeys, employee journeys. And when we look at all of those journeys put together, what I would call sort of like that layer cake almost of journeys that come together in order and that determine the quality of customer experience, that is really powerful in terms of driving these results, both for B2C companies, B2B companies, companies where maybe the brand loyalty is a little bit less strong, or where perhaps a company is further removed from the end customer. So we see that focusing on journeys and different types of journeys across customers, the end customer, of course, but also partners, suppliers, employees, has tremendous opportunity to help companies in all industries across all different types of products and services to improve the quality of the customer of the experiences that they're delivering to all of these different actors, if you like, in the story that are all trying to accomplish goals in different ways.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's a great question, because sometimes we sort of think about journey centricity and sort of think that it's only focused on B2C companies, but absolutely not. And in fact, we see a growing number also of B2B companies focusing on customer journeys. And in fact, one of the companies that we've worked with and sort of spoken to a number of times is ING, financial services company. And in fact, they use journey centricity to focus on both B2C as well as some of their B2B journeys. But one of the interesting things that they realized is that when customers, for instance, are opening a bank account, that's the primary goal that they're trying to achieve. They're not just opening a bank account because they want money to be transferred. There are also secondary needs in opening a bank account, like, for instance, paying for your taxes, or in when we were still sort of in the middle of the pandemic, even signing up for vaccination. But if you'd, for instance, opened a bank account online, it allowed you to open a bank account for the purposes of transferring money, but not to complete some of these other secondary needs. So as a company, you really need to understand all of the jobs to be done, if you like, that customers are trying to accomplish in order to make sure that we're designing those experiences correctly, but also that we are taking full opportunity of all of the different opportunities that are out there to engage with customers in different ways. So to come back to your question as well. And so we see that journeys help us to see how companies can incorporate products and services in customers' lives rather than the other way around. Sometimes we sort of fall into this way of thinking that's a little bit inside out. And so journeys really help us to embrace an outside-in way of thinking and to really consider how we can incorporate products and services in customers' lives. Journeys are, after all, customers' lived realities. So they're not a customer life cycle or a company goal or a company process. They really help us to empathize with customers' lived realities. And so companies are going to great lengths to understand these realities. For instance, a private investment firm that we spoke to started with customer needs, identified a bunch of cross-product and service journeys. They did a lot of ethnography with their customers, observed customers as they were going about trying to accomplish these goals in order to also drive innovation in some of these customer journeys. So it's a huge source of innovation potentially for companies as well.
It was interesting that you mentioned life cycle, because one of the things that I think about is in terms of journeys. It's easy to get kind of pigeonholed into, I'm going to talk about pre-sale journey. I'm going to set this up to convert a prospect to a customer. And then other people say, well, for me, it's all about loyalty. And I'm going to use journeys to help drive loyalty. Do you see kind of a mix in the customers that you're talking to, or is one more heavily focused than the other, or what's your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we see companies using journey centricity and journey analytics and journey orchestration, so a data-driven approach to journey centricity, really using that to drive use cases across the entire customer lifecycle. In fact, that's how we define journey orchestration. It really should be used for that purpose, right? The holy grail of journey orchestration is when you can look across all of the different types of interactions your customers have with your brand across marketing, product, service, and really create a coherent overall relationship for them, right? Taking into consideration all of those journeys. So we see really use cases across the entire customer life cycle, customer acquisition, as well as retention. At the moment, we see many companies, of course, focusing more on retention because in some cases, given the economic situation, acquisition is perhaps a little bit harder. And so we see a lot of companies really doubling down on customer retention type of use cases, but it's really across the entire life cycle.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and they're doing that for the second reason why journey centricity is so important, which is that it can lead to higher revenue, to reduced costs, and to better customer experience. And that second one, the potential to reduce costs, should also not be overlooked. And in fact, we've seen through our research that focusing on customer journeys can help to improve customer advocacy by 20 to 40%, reduce costs by 15 to 25%, by linking journeys to people, processes, technology within your organization so that we can look for opportunities to streamline inefficient processes or optimize marketing spend, for instance, or infuse the customer context into agent training, for example, which is another very prominent use case that we see in journey orchestration, for instance. And of course, incredibly important, it helps to drive higher revenue by 10 to 20%. So we see that companies are using journey centricity to acquire customers, but also to upsell, to cross-sell, to drive retention, loyalty, customer lifetime value. So really across that entire gamut, across that entire relationship with the customer.
Yeah,
So
those are pretty powerful numbers, I think, for a lot of people working with us.
yeah,
I think that kind of the unsaid part of that is Journeys allows you to be a little bit more focused on who are better targeting on the customers who are actually going to buy, who are in market. And I think that's a pretty powerful segment or use of Journeys, right? Is to really make sure whether you're talking ROAS and making sure that you're advertising for the right people or you're engaging with the right people, is you can set in a lot of tools, you can set up criteria, you can make sure that you really do your best job with segmentation.
absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, you bring up segmentation, which I think is important. A lot of companies are using their journey data and journey analytics to also find new segments, to find new audiences based on that behavioral data. So the opportunity to actually find audiences that are maybe engaging with your products and services in a different way using that journey behavior analysis is also hugely important. So absolutely, this has a very strong link to segmentation, to how we target customers, driving personalization, but also finding those new audiences, which I think is also a huge opportunity for organizations. And in fact, I wanted to share a couple of examples from companies that have done exactly that and have really embraced journey centricity in a big way. And an example of a company that has done that is Nissan. And Nissan realized that they were able to realize both new digital offerings as well as higher customer retention and vehicle value by focusing on 7 key journeys and 55 moments of truth across digital and physical locations. So really creating cross-channel journeys, training their employees, working with their dealerships in order to deliver that, and huge amount of benefits for them as a result of doing that. Another example of a company that has also realized some significant benefits is Lloyd's Banking Group. They focused on 10 key journeys, and they really used the journey, these 10 journeys as, if you like, a framework in order to drive digitalization within their organization, simplify journeys, but also really take that cross-channel journey approach. So they managed to increase not only revenue and of course retention, but also employee capacity. Huge benefits from an employee point of view. In their case, by increasing the time that employees could spend on value-added activities by 40%, by simplifying certain journeys, making sure that they release their employees to be able to answer more complex questions from their customers. So a lot of benefits from an employee perspective, employee experience perspective. Another example from a broadband provider, they managed to save millions in technician visit costs by providing clearer information to customers about when these technicians were coming to visit them in their homes, allowing them to rebook appointments on the same day, being able to sort of communicate more clearly and in more real time with their customers, and therefore sort of saving a lot of money in those technician visit costs. And similarly, a pharmacy chain that we also spoke to managed to double their refill percentage in 6 months and reduce customer churn by 20%, again, by using journey centricity to drive a lot more targeted customer experience, personalization, a lot more real-time alerts to their customers, and offering them more ways to make payments in different languages, for instance, and again, freeing up their pharmacy assistants to actually spend their time filling those prescriptions and providing great service to customers that were coming into those pharmacies. So huge amount of different types of benefits, different types of industries that are really embracing journey centricity. Now, if this sounds good to you, I hope so. If, of course, the third benefit of journey centricity is that it will disrupt your business and operating model. Now, this might sound a little bit counterintuitive. Is that a good thing, that it's going to disrupt my business and operating model? But actually, it is a good thing, because traditional operating models are, in general, very functional, of course, but not really always designed to deliver great experiences to customers and partners and suppliers. Take your typical food delivery order. You're about to order a pizza. You order your pizza from an app. The food is prepared by an independent restaurant. It is brought to you by a third-party rider that picks it up and delivers it. If there's a problem, it's the online food delivery company's customer service that logs the call and then passes on the information, perhaps to the restaurant. So there are at least 4 different global vice presidents, multiple teams, lots of different service level agreements, lots of different metrics, all in some cases competing with each other, that sometimes really get in the way of us delivering these great experiences, even with something as simple as ordering a pizza from your couch as you're watching TV. And so the reality is that a journey and a customer on a journey doesn't care if you belong to a marketing function or IT or risk or product development or digital. It's just a person trying to get something done, trying to accomplish a goal, sometimes a very functional goal, sometimes a more aspirational, more complex goal. And so we need to rationalize things within our own organizations and create links, bridge silos within our own organizations in order to deliver better experiences. And that really requires a mindset shift at all levels of the organization so that journeys can become the shared language and focus for organizations. If you remember, I shared Nissan's example. When Nissan embarked on its journey-centric transformation, their 7 journeys and 55 moments of truth, that was the framework that they really socialized within the organization. And in fact, they spent the first year of their transformation pretty much socializing that framework, those 7 journeys, the research they'd done around it, the most important things that were happening for customers, the make or break moments, the moments of truth in those journeys, in order to create that shared language, that focus for the whole organization, and then use that as a platform to really drive improvements across all of those different journeys and across all of the different silos within their organizations and the dealerships that they work with.
So I would imagine at that point that data, customer data, and understanding how to get a hold of it, how to use it, is pretty basic before they can get started, right?
Yes.
Like that's pretty big step for them. What were your encounters in terms of when you talked to them about challenges they had there, those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in order for them to get to the point where they could drive improvements to those 7 journeys, of course, they spent a lot of time in parallel retooling, if you like, and replatforming and rethinking, reframing a lot of the spending that they were channeling into different CRM systems, different vehicle apps, different websites. And so in parallel, they had to sort of look at both their web real estate as well as a lot of their plumbing, if you like, and make sense of what had become over the years a little bit like spaghetti junction, right? Lots of different things, weren't quite sure what was connected to what. And so in parallel, as they looked at these 7 journeys and they really got very clear on these 7 things that are the most important for our customers to achieve, the 5 moments of truth, how their vision for how they want to deliver those journeys, and then making sure that in the background, the data connections, as well as the investments they were making in technology in the background, in people, processes, and technology, were working in order to help them deliver this better experience, this more connected experience, which is ultimately their vision. So it absolutely required a lot of rethinking, reframing, some inefficient spending within the organization that had sort of crept up sort of over time, but also really understanding much better how to fuse data, how to connect that. And of course, that can sometimes, of course, be an arduous project, and it requires, of course, expertise within the organization to make sense of that architecture and to find those opportunities where we can rationalize things, simplify things, connect things differently so that ultimately it has that impact on both the employees, the dealerships, and ultimately the end customer. So that was a big part of their transformation.
Yeah, and it seems like in talking to customers that a lot of them get caught in this, what's my first step? What's my second?
Yes.
How do I know where I am in that process of maturity and getting started and doing that? I know we're going to talk about it, but I
Mm.
thought that I would call it out here because I think that's a big question for a lot of people is where do I start and how do I get going?
Absolutely. So, and both for Nissan as well as for Lloyd's Banking Group and any of the other examples that I've shared with you, even though they are embarked on very ambitious transformations, in the end, many of them, most of them, started with a couple of journeys, a couple of pilots, a couple of use cases, often starting where they saw the biggest customer pain or the biggest opportunity from a future revenue potential. So prioritization becomes incredibly important in exactly making the decisions that you just mentioned, so that we start with the right journeys. We start with journeys that are important to customers, perhaps require a little bit less technology changes or replatforming in the beginning so that we can build a success story. We can sort of get used to how do we need to work differently? What are the metrics we need to use? How do we need to use those differently? So those pilots and picking the right pilots and then prioritizing carefully which journeys to focus on also after that is incredibly important in helping companies to really sort of move from crawl to walk to run, right? So those initial pilots, the thinking around the prioritization of those journeys is very important, and something that absolutely both Nissan and Lloyd's, even though they ended up focusing on 7 and 10 journeys, they started with 1 or 2. They started with some clear use cases where they had some known metrics or some known problems, and then they build from there, right? So you don't try and do everything at the same time. You're not trying to fuse all of your data across all of your touch points at the same time, but you're sort of taking a use case by use case or a journey by journey approach, and from there scaling. And the more you rationalize, of course, your technology in the background and you connect your data in the background, the quicker you can at some point move. So at some point there's a pivot and you really start to be able to sort of amplify what you're doing much more quickly. But those beginning stages are very important, and picking the right journeys is crucial there.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the 3 advantages of focusing on journey centricity, they help you, customer journeys help you focus on what customers really want. They lead to higher revenue, reduced costs, better customer experience. They help you to also rethink those connections that we were just talking about between your data, between your information, between your applications. And then find opportunities to streamline things, remove inefficiencies, work better across silos. And it will, for that reason, disrupt your business and operating model, but for good reason and with, of course, very good effect and benefits. Of course, it does require a bold vision, right? So, of course, we've just described that crawl, walk, run approach. It does. Most companies start small with a single use case or a couple of journeys, but it does in the end require a bold vision if you're going to do it at scale. And so we see that companies that have embraced journey centricity, like for instance Mercedes-Benz, often there's an epiphany at the top, right? So in their case, the epiphany was that nobody needs a Mercedes-Benz to get from A to B. Any other car will do fine. And so they needed to really understand how to deliver an exceptional experience to their customers. Health insurance company in the Netherlands, where I'm based, VGZ, they realized that they wanted to move from being a health insurer into really being a partner in health solutions. So more than just insurance policies. It's about prevention. It's about creating a hub for people to really take care of their health and to find the right health solutions. That requires very different way of thinking and very different way of working across silos as well. So a bold vision there too. And Lloyd's, their ambition was helping Britain prosper by creating more sustainable and inclusive future for people and businesses. And again, they went about creating a new operating model to deliver that quality at speed, rethinking their technology, rethinking their journeys, of course, as well as unlocking employee capacity to really be able to drive more loyalty and more revenue. So that bold vision at the top is incredibly important. But that top-down bold vision is not sufficient. You also need bottom-up mind shift. So you need everyone in the organization, of course, to embrace this different way of doing things. So you need everyone to understand that journey language that we were talking about before, to really embrace this idea that journeys are not static, they're not linear, they're not these imagined realities we come up with. They are dynamic, they're individual to each customer, and they're their lived realities. And so we need to make sure we're collecting the right data, we are fusing it in the right way, we're also doing the right qualitative research on top of the quantitative data that we're collecting to make sure we understand what those journeys are. From a product team point of view, we see that often there needs to be a shift from focusing on features, product expertise, still incredibly important and will remain important. And many product-centric companies have also become journey-centric companies. And so features are important, but we need to start organizing those features into themes that drive experiences across journeys and understanding the entire experience the customer is having, and not just that vertical understanding of the very detailed features that go into a product, for instance. From a finance point of view, we also need to think differently about measurement. So measurement shifts from this snapshot in time to much more active journey management across a portfolio of journeys, using real-time data, fusing data so we can visualize how customers are flowing through those journeys, or partners or employees even. From a marketing perspective, we talked a little bit about this before. Often there's a shift required from sort of more demographically defined segments to journey-driven audiences. How can we rethink our audiences or segments based on their behavior, based on the journeys they interact with, based on how they flow through those journeys? So that's often a change, a very welcome change from a lot of marketing organizations. And finally, from a technology point of view, it's really important that technology teams shift from these channel and business unit based investments that can sometimes create that spaghetti junction that I described before, to journey defined capabilities that support multiple journeys, that are essential to support different types of experiences and are not just channel or business unit based investments. So a big mind shift at all different levels of the organization. We've seen many companies do this successfully. So if this sounds like a lot, rest assured that many companies are on these transformations. Again, as I mentioned, they start often sort of with pilots and some very well chosen use cases. One of the things that's incredibly important to get a transformation like this going and off the ground is, of course, storytelling. So we need to invest in storytelling skills. We need to bring to life what it means to be more journey-centric to the organization. So a story that I love to tell is this story from Mercedes-Benz. Because, of course, customers and employees remember stories. They tell this story that there was a customer who came into a dealership. She just had a problem with one of her tires. She was on her way to her son's hockey match, and she drove into the dealership, said, I had this problem. I promised my son I'm going to be at that match. I need to make it to the match. And so the dealership manager grabbed one of the technicians, walked into the showroom, removed a wheel and a rim from a different car, sort of like propped it up on 4 boxes, rolled the wheel over, put it on that customer's SUV, and off she went, and she made it on time to that hockey match. So, a wonderful story, extremely customer centric, right? Sort of you're there in the moment doing what the customer needs to get done at that point in time and what matters to the customer. But telling these stories, bringing them to life within the organization is very important to help drive these mind shifts that we were talking about before, to make sure that people understand what it means from the customer's perspective to be journey centric. And so we use data, we use journey analytics and orchestration. So journey analytics, the fusion of data across the entire journey, different journeys that are maybe happening in parallel and sequentially. And then we use that data to orchestrate experiences with the end customer, as well as to orchestrate also information and experiences within our own organizations. And so it helps us to understand the individual customer's journey and then to be able to scale from there. So by using a data-driven approach to journey centricity and using the right tools that enable us to do that, we can more quickly identify who's on that journey, how many people like that person are on the journey, who's that individual, what are their specific struggles or opportunities, how can we scale that using machine learning and AI, for instance, what are they trying to do, what is happening sequentially and in parallel, what are the life events or the external factors like a pandemic that could influence what they're trying to do in those journeys. And then over time, we're using that data and more sophisticated data about emotion as well, to really understand customer intent, orchestrate more complex journeys, more aspirational journeys, and also take that insight, take that information to drive both product as well as business model innovation within our own organization. So that's really the focus, if you like, or the advantages of focusing on journey analytics and orchestration and taking this more data-driven approach that also helps amplify these mind shifts within the organization.
And what I would say is I think it's gotten a lot easier over the last year or so with low code or no code solutions, specifically around orchestration, to make working with those journeys and configuring them and putting them together so much easier. So it's a little less spaghetti there, maybe, and a little easier to do, but definitely something we should spend some time working on.
Absolutely, 100%. And in fact, we see this whole sort of category of different tools, in fact, that play into exactly what you just described. So we see Journey orchestration tools, of course, appear as a category of technology, but also real-time interaction management, cross-channel campaign management tools, CDPs, and often a combination of these that are helping companies to do this more effectively and more quickly, less manually, obviously, as well, and much more at scale. So extremely important to sort of take these tools that are out there. Some are new, they're emerging categories, others are more established categories. In some cases, we're trying to figure out how to combine these different things, a CDP with a journey orchestration engine, for instance, or an RTIM tool, as well as a CJO tool, so that we can take those journey analytics, we can drive next best experiences, and we can use that real-time journey data to really understand how to drive improvements for marketing, for advertising, for e-commerce, right? And to increasingly progressively enrich customers' profiles so that we understand more and more about their intent. And again, coming back to what we were talking about before, it's really important to take a walk, crawl, run approach, to this as well, because you need to start by connecting some of your data. Again, you don't start by connecting all of your data. Perhaps you're initially connecting email and SMS and maybe your web data. And you're starting there. And you're starting by looking at journeys that start on the web and end up in the call center, for instance, right? In order to see if there's opportunities to simplify those journeys, to help customers maybe solve some of those simpler problems themselves in self-service so that agents can deal with the more complex problems. So you have sort of lots of different data sources, of course, but we start with connecting one or two or a use case so that we can start to drive some of these benefits. And it's important to also, again, take that sort of staged approach as well to this. But yes, lots of technologies out there that are very enabling and work as a catalyst to do some of the things that we've been describing.
Yeah, this is a great blueprint, I think, for people to take away.
Yeah. So we see that journey centricity, and hopefully we've sort of managed to at least inspire you a little bit today, that journey centricity really does lead to higher revenue, to lower costs, to better customer loyalty. I wanted to sort of just leave you with a couple of numbers and results from companies that have been focusing on this for a while. Companies as diverse as Bank of Montreal, E.ON, utilities company, Lloyd's Banking Group. So Lloyd's Banking Group is a case in point. They invested a 502 million pound budget to focus on overhauling 10 key customer journeys. And they, after reorganizing these journeys and really focusing on customer needs, they managed to realize 500 million in both savings and revenue increases. So huge transformation, big, bold vision, but also some very significant results and a huge improvement in their customer experience ranking as well. Nissan, which we've also talked a little bit about, they took this very data-first approach that shows the end-to-end journey through retention and repurchase. And for instance, in the US, 80% of customers who get service are 2 times more likely to repurchase with Nissan, which is their beacon metric. That is the thing they're trying to really sort of deliver. But also the average value of a Nissan vehicle has increased by hundreds of euros as a result of people really being more connected with the brand and with the actual product, and believing that the experience is going to deliver what they want from that purchase. And finally, it's not just financial services and car manufacturers. It's really, we see companies across the board. So also in the utility sector, for instance, and at the moment, a very important sector with a lot of customers, of course, really struggling and really needing their utilities companies to be there for them. We see, for instance, companies like EnBW reducing customer churn by 20%, improving cross-sell by over 300%, and significantly reducing pressures on the call center and cost to serve. And this was particularly in the pandemic, this was huge. So we saw that companies that invested in journey orchestration before the pandemic were able to reap very, very significant results as a result of having those technologies we were just talking about in place, access to that real-time data, and that more holistic, connected view of the customer journey. So with that, I wanted to thank you for your attention today, and hopefully that has been informative and inspiring and has gotten you excited about journey centricity.
Yeah, thank you, Joana. I appreciate it. So we'll find our way through that spaghetti of marketing operations technology. But I think the other thing that came through pretty clearly was for companies that are focused on customer experiences, helping customers get job to be done, journey and things like journey orchestration really represent a path and a place for them to get started. So I think this is it has been inspiring, and I appreciate your time. So thank you very much. And we also have a list of resources for people that want to get more information about Journey, from everything from how do I set one up to help me understand a little bit about what customers or people or companies are doing for Journey. So I think it's a good list to get started. So thanks again. I appreciate your time. And this was a great session. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Click the agenda link at the top of your screen to choose your next session.